Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into Taoist philosophy today.
Sounds intriguing.
It is. We're going to be looking at how this ancient wisdom, from way back when, might actually have some surprising relevance for how we live today in the 21st century.
Okay, I'm interested.
We got some really interesting source material to dig into. Excerpts from the Dao De Jing, chapter 19 specifically, by Laozi.
Right.
All right. We've also got a lecture from Tao Master Chu Meng Fu. It's pretty thought-provoking.
Okay.
And just to round things out, a piece that explores how some of these Taoist ideas connect to Western philosophical thought.
So we're going to be jumping around a bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's the fun of these deep dives, right? You never know where we'll end up.
True enough.
So, ready to challenge a few assumptions? Maybe uncover a secret or two about how to live a more harmonious life?
Always up for a challenge. Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Well, Laozi doesn't waste any time throwing us a bit of a curveball in chapter 19 of the Dao De Jing. Yeah, he suggests that we should just, abandon sagehood, wisdom, benevolence, righteousness.
Okay, he lost me.
Oh, and also cleverness and profit.
I mean, those all sound like pretty good things. Why would he want us to just get rid of them?
Right, I know. Those are things we usually think of as desirable qualities.
It's exactly. So what's Laozi getting at here?
I think it's important to understand the context. He's not saying these qualities are, inherently bad. It's more about the way we chase after them.
What do you mean?
So often it's driven by our egos or societal pressure,
Okay, yeah.
And that can actually take us further away from real fulfillment.
So it's not the qualities themselves, but the motivation behind them.
Exactly. Imagine someone's always bragging about how smart they are.
Right.
Or they're going out of their way to be charitable, but it's all for show.
So are they really wise and benevolent? Or just putting on a performance?
Exactly. Laozi is urging us to look past those external displays.
And focus on...
cultivating a deeper, more authentic way of being.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. It's about being genuine, not just looking the part.
Right. And this actually reminds me of something Tao Master Chu Meng Fu said in his lecture.
Oh, yeah.
He compared the way we obsess over wealth, status, even knowledge, to something pretty unexpected.
Let me guess. Shopping. Social media.
Nope, drug addiction.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
It is. It really gets the point across.
Yeah, that even things we usually consider good, like knowledge or helping others,
Can become traps if we take them to extremes.
we get so caught up in that chase for external markers of success that we lose sight of what actually matters.
So if we're not supposed to be chasing after wisdom and all these virtues, what are we supposed to do? What does Laozi propose instead?
He points us towards something called the uncarved block.
Uncarved block.
It's also called pu.
Okay.
It's a metaphor, really a state of pure potential, before anything is imposed on it, unburdened by, constructs and expectations.
So it's about returning to our natural state of being.
Yeah, free from the constraints of ego, of all that social conditioning.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see where this is going.
Yeah.
So it's not about being ignorant or apathetic.
Yeah,
right?
really not.
It's about stripping away all those layers that prevent us from accessing our true selves.
You got it. And it's amazing how this concept, the uncarved block, actually shows up in Western philosophy too.
Really? Tell me more.
Well, think about the Cynics.
Those were ancient Greek philosophers, right?
Yeah, like Diogenes. He was famous for rejecting the complexities of Athenian society.
I think I read about him. Didn't he live in a barrel or something?
He did. He owned barely any possessions and basically challenged all the social norms.
Wow. Living in a barrel. That's definitely a commitment to simplicity.
Right. But you see how his philosophy lines up with Laozi's idea.
Yeah, about returning to a natural state.
It's like letting go of all the trappings of society and rediscovering what it means to be truly human.
Okay, yeah, I see the connection. So we see this uncarved block idea in other Western philosophies too.
Definitely. Existentialism also touches on this idea of self-creation, of rejecting those predefined identities.
Right, so it's not just simplifying our lives. It's about simplifying our sense of self too.
Absolutely. Letting go of those rigid labels, the expectations we put on ourselves.
This is all incredibly thought-provoking, but I have to admit, it's making me wonder how this all works in the real world.
In what way?
Well, Laozi goes on to critique benevolence and righteousness,
Oh.
which are usually considered virtues in most societies, right? So how do those fit into this whole framework of simplicity and authenticity?
That's where things get really interesting. Laozi isn't saying we shouldn't be kind or unjust.
Okay.
He's challenging us to look deeper at the motivations behind our actions.
So it's not just about doing good deeds for the sake of it.
Exactly. Sometimes, we might do something nice or charitable,
Yeah.
but it's driven more by a desire for recognition.
Oh, like to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, rather than genuine compassion.
It's like that saying, the best deeds are done in secret.
Exactly. Laozi is encouraging us to move past those superficial displays of virtue.
And cultivate something more genuine.
Yes, a more heartfelt way of relating to each other.
Okay, that makes sense. And I see how it ties into that idea of authenticity.
Yeah.
It's about aligning our actions with our real intentions,
Yeah.
not some preconceived idea of being good.
Right on. And this connects with the concept in Western philosophy called bad faith.
Bad faith, what's that?
It basically means acting according to what society expects, instead of being true to yourself.
So Laozi's pushing us to be more authentic.
Exactly. To embrace a more genuine expression of who we really are.
Okay, this is all fascinating stuff, but I have to be honest, I'm still struggling with this idea of abandoning skill and profit.
How so?
I mean, don't we need skills to succeed in the world? And what about the motivation to create, to contribute?
You're bringing up some really important points. And I think understanding Laozi's perspective here is crucial.
Okay.
He's not necessarily against skill or profit in and of themselves.
Okay.
What he's cautioning us against is the obsessive pursuit of those things.
Okay.
Especially when it's driven by greed, competition that need to be better than everyone else.
Right.
So it's about recognizing that true success and fulfillment lies in finding a balance between our individual pursuits and contributing to the well-being of everyone.
So maybe it's more about redefining what success actually means.
Exactly, instead of completely abandoning the pursuit of it.
That makes sense.
And this leads to another key point. Laozi suggests that this relentless pursuit of skill and profit, especially if it's fueled by those unhealthy motivations, can lead to some pretty negative consequences.
Like what?
Theft, deceit, things like that.
Oh, wow.
He's basically saying that our obsession with material gain, with personal advancement, come at the expense of others.
It can create disharmony in society. That's such a powerful insight, especially in today's world, where we're constantly being told to want more.
More.
Exactly. So it makes me wonder, are there any alternative models of success out there? Models that align with this idea of balance and harmony that Laozi's talking about?
There are. Think about the rise of social entrepreneurship. It's where businesses are using their skills and resources to address social or environmental problems.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're not ditching profit entirely,
Right.
but they're using it as a tool to create positive change.
That's amazing. So it is possible to achieve individual success and contribute to something bigger.
Absolutely. And it fits perfectly with Laozi's core message.
Which is?
That the path to harmony lies in embracing simplicity, reducing selfishness, and curbing those desires that ultimately lead to suffering.
So he's not saying we all need to become hermits, live in caves.
Right.
But we can find greater fulfillment by focusing on what truly matters.
Exactly. Connection, compassion, living in accordance with nature.
So
It really is. And it's a reminder that sometimes less is truly more.
yeah, and it's not just an abstract philosophical concept.
Right.
It's something we can actually apply to our own lives.
And we see that reflected in the growing popularity of minimalism, don't we?
Oh yeah, people are decluttering, downsizing,
Focusing on experiences instead of material possessions.
letting go of all that excess, finding contentment in what they already have.
It's funny you should mention minimalism because the piece we have that explores the connections between Taoism and Western philosophy actually brings that up.
It does.
Yeah. It points out how Laozi's ideas about simplicity and desire have a lot in common with minimalist thinking.
That makes sense.
Minimalism is all about getting rid of the unnecessary, right? Just like Laozi's uncarved block.
Yeah. It's about freeing ourselves from the weight of all our stuff and focusing on what brings us joy.
I think that message is so relevant today.
It is.
With all this pressure to consume, to accumulate more and more,
It's like we're conditioned to believe that happiness is something we buy or achieve.
instead of something we cultivate from within.
And that's where Laozi's wisdom comes in.
Right.
It's a completely different perspective.
What if real happiness comes not from chasing more, but from letting go?
What if it's about finding contentment in this moment?
Instead of constantly striving for something better.
Wow, that's a real paradigm shift, isn't it?
It is.
Instead of focusing on what we lack.
We start appreciating what we already have.
Exactly.
And that shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating.
You know, when you think about it, so much of what we've been discussing today comes back to this idea of letting go.
Letting go.
Letting go of expectations, of the need to control, of those desires that keep us trapped.
And in that letting go, we create space for something new.
Like what?
Maybe a deeper sense of peace, more genuine connection with ourselves and others.
Maybe even a glimpse of that effortless harmony that Laozi talks about.
Yeah.
I love that. Creating space for something new.
It's both exciting and a little scary, right?
Yeah, definitely both.
But that's the beauty of it, you know? This journey with Taoist principles,
It's not about reaching some fixed destination.
it's about exploration and growth.
Always evolving.
As we kind of wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay.
If Laozi is right, what would it look like to embrace simplicity and reduce desire in your own life?
That's a great question.
Maybe it's about changing your daily routine.
Spending more time in nature,
Or maybe it's about deepening your connections with loved ones.
or even letting go of a goal that isn't serving you anymore.
Creating space for something new and unexpected.
It's all about finding what works for you.
It's been a really inspiring conversation so far.
It has. I hope our listeners will take these ideas and keep exploring them.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Taoist philosophy.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with part 2.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep seeking those moments of simplicity, peace, and genuine connection.
And remember, less is often more. You know, it's really fascinating how these ancient ideas connect to so many different parts of our lives today.
Yeah, for sure. We've already talked a bit about minimalism, but I'm curious to hear more about those connections to Western philosophy you mentioned.
Yeah. It's amazing how those connections emerge, you know? Like, for example, this whole idea of reducing desire, finding contentment in the present moment, it really has a lot in common with Stoic philosophy.
Oh yeah, the Stoics. I remember studying them a little in college.
Right, they really emphasized acceptance, focusing on what you can control, letting go of what you can't.
Yeah, finding that inner peace amidst all the chaos.
Absolutely, and that's something that feels super relevant today, wouldn't you say?
Totally. The world's pretty chaotic these days.
You said it. And there are also some interesting links to existentialism, you know, that school of thought that emphasizes creating meaning in a world that often feels meaningless.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like Laozi's concept of the uncarved block. It could be seen as an invitation to define ourselves through our actions, our choices, rather than external labels or societal expectations.
So it's about shaping our own identity, becoming who we truly want to be.
Right, and not letting ourselves be defined by those external forces.
Wow, I'm really loving how you're weaving all these different philosophical threads together.
It's pretty amazing to see how these ideas, you know, from different cultures, different times,
Yeah.
they actually share this common core.
This idea of simplicity, authenticity, finding contentment from within,
It seems to transcend boundaries, historical periods, all of that.
it's a reminder that wisdom can be found everywhere if we're open to it.
Exactly, and I think Laozi's message has something to offer everyone, even if they're not familiar with Taoist philosophy.
I agree. It speaks to something universal.
A yearning for peace, for connection, for a way of life that's both meaningful and sustainable.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes from letting go of what we think we know
Letting go.
and opening ourselves up to new perspectives.
I like that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Laozi's wisdom, what are some key takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Oh, that's a great question.
I think the most important thing is to remember that Laozi isn't giving us a strict set of rules to follow, you know?
Okay.
It's more about a new perspective, an invitation to explore a different way of being.
A different way of being in the world.
Exactly. One that emphasizes simplicity, authenticity, and harmony.
So it's not about achieving some perfect state of Taoist enlightenment or something,
Wow, no, not at all.
but rather about making choices that are in line with these principles,
Right, integrating these ideas into our lives in a way that feels natural.
authentic to us.
Exactly. Like, what if instead of always chasing after the next big thing, we focused on being content with what we have right now?
Shifting our attention from what we lack to what we already have.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. You know, it reminds me of that saying, wanting what you have is a far greater treasure than having what you want.
It's so true.
But it's tough, isn't it? Letting go of that desire for more when the world's constantly telling us to want more.
It definitely takes effort. But I think if we can just step back from all that noise, reconnect with what truly matters to us, we might be surprised by what we find.
You know, it's interesting. So much of what we've talked about comes back to this idea of letting go.
Letting go.
Letting go of expectations, the need to control, the desires that keep us feeling stuck.
And when we let go, we make space for something new.
A deeper sense of peace.
Maybe. Or a more genuine connection with ourselves, with others.
Maybe even a glimpse of that effortless harmony Laozi describes.
It's possible.
Wow, I love that image, creating space for something new.
Yeah. It's both liberating and a bit daunting, don't you think?
It is.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good kind of daunting.
You know, this journey of embracing Taoist principles, it's not about reaching some fixed endpoint.
It's a process.
Exactly. It's about ongoing exploration, continuous growth.
And finding our own unique path.
Absolutely. It really is a journey, isn't it? Finding our own path to simplicity. One that feels authentic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it'd be great to, highlight some key takeaways for our listeners.
You know, I think the most important thing is that Laozi, he's not giving us a bunch of strict rules.
Okay.
Yeah, he's offering like a new perspective, a different way of looking at things.
A different way of being in the world.
Exactly. One that values simplicity, authenticity, and harmony.
So it's not about, reaching some perfect state of Taoist enlightenment or anything.
No, not at all.
It's more about those everyday choices we make.
And making sure they align with these principles, yeah.
What if, instead of always striving for more, we just focused on being content with what we already have?
Yeah, shifting that focus from what we lack to what we have right now.
That's a pretty big shift, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It reminds me of that quote, wanting what you have is a far greater treasure than having what you want. But it's tough, letting go of that desire for more when we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to want more.
Yeah, it definitely takes conscious effort. But if we can step back from all that noise and just reconnect with what truly matters to us, we might be surprised at what we discover.
It's interesting. When I think about it, so much of what we've discussed today keeps circling back to this idea of letting go.
Letting go.
Letting go of expectations, the need to control, those desires that just keep us feeling trapped.
And in that letting go, we create space for something new.
A deeper sense of peace, more genuine connections.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe even a glimpse of that effortless harmony that Laozi talks about.
I love that, creating space for something new.
It's kind of exciting and daunting at the same time, right?
Yeah, a little bit of both, for sure.
But that's the beauty of it, this journey of embracing Taoist principles.
It's not about arriving at some fixed destination. It's about the process of getting there.
It's about the exploration, the continuous growth.
Finding our own unique path.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I really want to leave our listeners with this one question to think about.
What's that?
What would it look like for you to embrace simplicity and reduce desire in your own life?
That's such a great question to ponder.
Right. Maybe it means simplifying your routine, spending more time in nature, or really nurturing those connections with loved ones.
Or maybe it's about finally letting go of a goal that's no longer serving you, creating space for something new to come in.
Exactly. It's all about figuring out what works for you.
It's been an incredible conversation, really inspiring.
I've enjoyed it.
I hope our listeners will take these ideas from Laozi and, keep exploring them in their own lives.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Taoist philosophy.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into ancient wisdom. Until then, keep seeking those moments of simplicity, peace, and genuine connection.